to this idea, and it was natural selection. And Darwin basically said, oh my goodness, right? This is exactly the same ideas that I have. So they actually got in correspondence with each other, and they actually ended up publishing a paper together in 1858.
I wouldn't have done that. I would have sent my shit in.
No, I would have been like, no, this is a horrible idea.
And then you published it? Well, what'd you say? So yeah, go kill a squirrel. Get out of my face. Right? Luckily,
you send someone to kill him and it's fine. He stays shut.
Darwin was a gentleman and didn't do that. Wallace was also a gentleman and he didn't, try to,
How does Wallace know Darwin?
What's that?
How does Wallace know that Darwin was lying about it?
That I think because it kind of Wallace basically said, "Oh, really? You have research," and then Darwin shows hundreds of pages of research. Okay, I see your point there. I don't know. I thought of this, but no, he actually did have the evidence to back it up. So eventually, Darwin published, and luckily, I was on his Facebook feed that day. So, crazy news, looks like all living creatures evolved from more basic forms over millennia. The church, you drink them, bro? I'm serious, and I'm pretty sure humans evolved from primates, and then the church gets a little bit angry.
Why do I think so? What are all these dates?
I don't like to hear this.
They're gonna hate Henry then.
You didn't know that Facebook was around 1999. I think it was called Mouthbook.
Ha ha ha, very funny.
Yeah, that joke didn't actually make sense. So I tried that. So here's another date page. And you can see that Darwin was the grand old age of what when he published?
The origin of species.
He was born in 1809, 1859, years he publishes his books.
That's pretty long.
That's him at 50?
I think that's him. It's a
So
little
old.
older than that.
That's him dead.
What?
Yeah. They took his dead body.
This is his guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hero's dead body.
He actually ended up being entombed in West Abbey.
Is it still there?
No. On the full moon, his body actually escapes and murders creationists, but on most days.
No, but like, can we visit it too?
Yeah, I visited.
Yeah?
You went to England?
I went and dumped some bio pages on it in respect to him. It's like, this is my homie. So, I showed you pictures when I visited Watson and Crick's water hole. So,
Wait, didn't you go to that pub?
Oh.
and
Yeah.
that was a little more exciting than going to a graveyard, which is where I ended up going. But so, and basically all the
Is your wife into the whole bio stuff?
not really.
Yeah, her life must be.
It's the living hell. So here now, Darwin, published in 1859, ends up being a huge success. Now the thing is I would recommend reading this, and I do. But I would read the abridged version of it, written by Richard Dawkins. And basically, because especially if you read like old Shakespeare and stuff like that, you can't understand what the hell he's talking about because the language is so different. Just 150 years ago. So Dawkins basically took his idea and translated it, if you will. So if you're interested in extra credit, also have the comic book is also the other extra credit. So pretty quickly, the scientists took note of it. So the last thing, we'll just introduce just a few examples of natural selection. So our practice is to make sure you understand it because you're definitely going to see questions like these on the test. Now some questions you might be lucky enough that they'll be exactly the same. But most likely you'll be seeing novel situations, and you'll have to say, well, based on the environment, how would this species evolve? Okay.
Come on, Mr. Man.
Mate? Yes.
Survive over there? Natural selection. How long can you go
I don't
in the
get called
water?
that stuff, to be honest.
imagine calling Charles
Something-
Darwin nigga?
Where's it?
Yo, bro,
Don't be
come here.
lofty.
That's not my fault.
Listen, Chico.
No.
No, it's not.
But I had a parent named Chico.
No, I'm gonna copy
It was
it. What
green.
time is this period?
35.
Excuse?
I'll give you a pass, I'll copy out.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, but it's a messed up schedule.
Thank you, Pearson.
Now, once again, this is all saying that certain variations might be more common, or reproduce more, I should say, based on the environment. Once again, some traits actually kind of don't matter. You know, whether your earlobe is attached or not probably isn't going to affect your life, right? Whether you can roll your tongue or not probably isn't going to, I would have.
It's not rolling your tongue.
It probably won't get you out of a jam in life. So, but ultimately, what we're going to be seeing is that certain traits do matter, right? Your susceptibility to disease. Oh my goodness, such big words I can't pronounce them. For example, for other creatures, we'll go into a little bit more detail. So, in this peppered moth example, if you have a white tree, which one will probably be doing better?
The white one,
The white one. Why?
because it blends in better.
Right, so when hawks and other animals come to eat the moths, those that are white will happen to do this. Now, once again, it completely depends on the environment, because where would it be terrible to be a white moth?
You're in a black
Yeah, living on a black tree, right? So it's all about that.
All right, so as Carlos and some of you alluded to, geez, it seems like some organisms just keep on reproducing, like your guys' favorite flies from lab.
Oh my god.
But no, so as you guys notice, flies and many other species have a super duper high reproductive potential, right? They can pop out tons of babies, or however, right? So the main points of natural selection are organisms do have a high reproductive potential, right? But as Mr. Meck was saying, depending on their genotypes, depending on the variation of their traits, they will either be able to survive and mate, right, and reproduce more and have healthy offspring, or they may not be able to survive, right? So just because a species has a high reproductive potential, if they can't find a mate, if they don't have a trait that's favorable to help them survive and to mate, that high reproductive potential is essentially useless, right? So this is what natural selection is all about. So I thought you guys could relate because of the flies and lab, but I know you missed them.
Are they dead?
So we're going to be focusing on, how did these traits arise? And your homework for tonight, which is actually a delightful worksheet.
Jesus grabbed one side of the neck, and then Joseph held the other side, and they pulled.
Get out. So here, so you can put your notebook away. I'm going to hand out your homework for tonight. The concept mapping at the bottom you don't have to do. I think you'll find this nice, short and sweet. But it's talking about how adaptations might help organisms survive. Because as we're going to focus on tomorrow, it's about surviving. But ultimately it's about surviving long enough in order to find a mate.